Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are all doing well. I hope you guys enjoyed today's stories as much as I enjoyed reading them. Before I get into it, I do want to say that this first story really creeped me the hell out. But anyways, if you guys have any thoughts or comments, feel free to drop them down below. Now let's get right into these 3 true and scary Reddit stories. Strange encounter at Great Wolf Lodge at night. Hello everyone. My family and I had a weird night at Great Wolf Lodge and wanted to check if anyone else had similar encounters at this place. We've stayed here 3 times before with no problems ever, but this was the first time anything like this has ever happened. We stayed at the Great Wolf Lodge and had a suite room. It has 2 conjoining rooms with 2 doors where you can lock the room from either side. The kids stayed in the kid-style room with kid bunk beds, and we stayed on the non-kid side room. We kept the doors for both sides open, and I made sure the doors for both rooms were fully locked, including the lock where you can't fully open the door from the outside. At midnight, my son, 6 years old, ran into our room half awake next to our bed and was crying half asleep sitting up right next to us. I asked him if he had a bad dream, and he said no, I really saw something scary in my room. It was a big kid with a dark shadow walking around. I ran right past him to get here. I knew I checked the room before we went to sleep and figured it was his imagination, and we went back to sleep. And then, at 3 a.m., my wife sat up frantically looking around, and I asked what's the matter. She said someone yelled, "Mom." You honestly didn't hear that? I told her no, I didn't. Then she asked me to go check on our daughter. I got to the kids' bunk den in the next room and found her out of bed, bundled up in the corner, hyperventilating and full of tears. I swooped her up and she started saying, "Be careful, Dad, he's still in here." I ran her back to our room and laid her on our bed with my wife and started searching the whole place. I turned on all the lights and checked literally everywhere, and there was no one. The doors were untouched, locks still in place, and windows unable to open. Honestly, I was feeling the walls and mirror looking for hidden doors. I asked my daughter what she saw, and she said she was laying on the top bunk and thought at first it was me walking towards their bunk bed, but as I got closer, she realized it wasn't me. She said the person was taller and skinnier than me. It also had smooth white skin and a neck longer than a normal person. Its skin was a paper white, smooth, and looked naked but wasn't naked. It didn't appear to have much facial features. I asked if it was maybe a blanket, and she said no. Its skin was smooth without wrinkles, and it walked straight up to me, and I covered myself. Then I watched it walk towards the door where your room is. I came down the bunk when it walked away and peeked out the den window, but saw it still walking towards your room. So I hid in the corner you found me in, and I tried to stay quiet so it wouldn't hear me because I thought it would kill me. But I started panicking and couldn't breathe good trying to be quiet. I was thinking of running out the front door into the hallway. My wife asked our daughter if she was trying to be quiet, then why did she yell "Mom?" Our daughter said no. I never said anything because I didn't want it to hear me and kill me. I didn't hear our daughter say anything besides her hyperventilating as I got close to the bunk beds. I told my daughter not to mention what she saw to our son even after he tells us what he saw when he wakes up. I know he would be spooked if he found out his sister had a similar encounter a few hours after him. Both our kids consistently sleep in their own rooms since they were little and have never ran into our room in the middle of the night unless our son had a rare bathroom accident. At this point, we figured the kids' room was sketchy, so we kept them with us, then closed and locked our room from that room. It took an hour for my wife to fall back asleep. I was honestly spooked by this whole thing, so I left the hallway light on and figured I'd just keep watch and stay awake till daylight. After she fell back asleep, the closet light I left on turned off and wouldn't let me turn it on, so I turned the bathroom light on. A little later, I heard loud knocking on the conjoining room door I had locked. I honestly got goosebumps and tried to convince myself it was coming from the front door, but knew it was coming from the conjoining door. I debated whether to ignore it or check. I felt vulnerable laying down without checking, so I went and checked and there was nothing, just an empty room, luckily still with lights on. Half an hour later, my wife, still asleep, started freaking out in her sleep. She appeared to be having a night terror, which she has had before, 1 to 2 times per year in past. I woke her up and she was frantic. She stood up and said she dreamt she woke up from a dream in the same bed. She went to the bathroom in our room, came out, and ended up being stuck in the other room, locked in with the evil entity. She said I had locked her in the other room and she was knocking like crazy in her dream, trying to get back in on our side before the entity got her. Later in the morning, our son woke up and we asked him to describe what he saw. He said he saw what looked like a shape of a big tall kid with a long neck that was white/gray in color and had a scary big dark shadow walking around the room. He said it was making weird noises like it was speaking words he didn't understand. He said it walked right up to him in the bed and had big eyes that glowed like our cat's eyes glowed in the dark. As the sun came out, we got the courage to go into the other room and grab our belongings to leave. The last weird thing is the room had a weird smell which wasn't present there the day prior. It had smelled like a weird incense was lit. Kind of reminded me of those thick incense that were popular back in the 90s. So I personally didn't see a thing, but both of my kids, 6 and 9, who have never had an encounter like this, saw the same thing 3 hours apart from each other and had similar description of it without knowing each other's description of it. The only thing that differed in the description was my daughter said it appeared faceless, and my son said it had big glowy eyes and white/gray, not just white. However, my daughter covered herself when it got closer, and my son watched it approach. I did, however, witness 1. Both of my kids having similar encounter. 2. My wife wake up to something yelling mom. 3. The lights turn off and not turn back on. 4. Banging on the conjoining room door. 5. My wife having a night terror where she said she was locked in the other room banging on the door 30 minutes after I heard banging on the door. I've never really been a big believer on hauntings and paranormal stuff, but after this, I'm left questioning if it's in my head, and I'm finding myself thinking about it all the time. TLDR. During our stay at the Great Wolf Lodge, both our kids, hours apart, saw the same white, tall, faceless figure with a long neck while sleeping in the other attached room. One ran to our room scared, the other was found hiding in tears hours later. Also heard knocking, saw lights turn off, and my wife had a night terror about being locked in the other room with the entity and banging on the door to get back. I've never believed in the paranormal stuff, but this has left me shaken and questioning everything. Anyone else with a similar experience at the Great Wolf Lodge or have ideas what could have been? I believe I have had a few encounters with something. So I'm going to assume you people will know more about this stuff than I do, and hopefully I can figure out if I'm going crazy or not. I, 20 male, live with my parents, and our house is built rurally, nearby or directly on a particularly large battle from the Taranaki Wars in New Zealand. I don't know whether that changes anything, but anyway, our house is made up of original farmhouse, built in the 1910s, and a newer extension to the house, around 1990s. The old half of the house has a really weird feeling to it, like I can't really describe it, but it just feels uncomfortable being there. Now, I sleep in the newer part of the house, and I've noticed there's something really off-putting when I look through the door that leads to the older part of our house, like I genuinely feel like I'm being watched. I know that's nothing strange, we psych ourselves out quite often, but I swear there's something in the house. One time, about a year and a half ago, my girlfriend and I were at my house because my parents and siblings were visiting a family in a town 3 hours away. So, and while we were busy, I heard something yelling my name from the living room, which is in the old part of the house. Now, I thought I just made it up in my mind until my girlfriend told me to stop so she could cover up just in case whoever yelled decided to come in. She then reasonably scolded me a little for not telling her people were home, but they weren't. I did a little sweep of the house, couldn't find anyone. I walked the driveway, no cars apart from my own. I looked in the sheds, empty. We both thought, oh, that's strange, and decided to try again. And after a while, my dog started going ballistic, so we assumed my family had come back, and I headed to the kitchen. Only, my family wasn't back, and the dog was standing in the doorway of the newer part of the house, just staring into the living room, which seriously made me uncomfortable. I quite frequently hear my name being called whilst I'm home alone, and my dogs often follow thin air with their heads, which is unsettling. But I spoke with sister about how I'm convinced our house is haunted recently, which wasn't the best idea. My sister's room is in the older part of the house, and she said that most nights she will wake up to see her blankets deflating like something was under them. And then she often feels someone sitting at the end of her bed. When my parents went on a holiday and it was just me and my siblings for a few weeks, my sister texted me when I was at work asking what I wanted. I replied asking what she meant, and she claimed I had just yelled at her name. Now, I know she could just be messing with me, but she's not the only member of my family who reckons that the old part of the house is haunted. I don't know if I'm going crazy or not, but I thought I'd share this with you, just in case. Cheers. Hearing noises in the woods in Middle Georgia. I live out in Middle Georgia in the woods out on 2 acres. I live next to a vacant house where the owner passed and my other neighbors are an older couple. Both neighbors are about 100 to 200 yards from my house. For about a year, I've been fine going out late at night or to my carport about 40 yards from the house with no issues. Until recently, I started hearing voices coming from the woods. One night around 9 p.m., I was outside smoking a cigarette on my porch when I heard a baby crying from about 50 yards away, which is just in the wood line. The cries would happen about 2 minutes apart and sounded closer each time. The worst part is they sounded like my 1-year-old son's cry. Hearing this alarmed me because my neighbors are far and nobody has any babies. About 2 nights later, I heard someone saying, "Daddy," in a familiar voice similar to my son again. This time, my wife had heard it too, and we went inside immediately. Today, my wife was letting out our dog to the restroom and was whistled at from outside near our house. Then our dog's hair immediately stood up and went outside barking at the air. I have observed paranormal activity throughout my life, but nothing that others have been able to see or hear. I get the same feeling down my spine that something bad is near whenever I go outside at night and hear these voices. I'm also nervous because my son seems to wake up at random times at night, screaming like he is scared. His window is facing the wood line where I hear the noises. I don't know if he's just crying because he wants us for comfort, or if something is scaring him and he can't say anything. I'm hoping to get some insight if anyone has had any similar experiences or any fixes. Alright, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really hope you guys enjoyed those creepy stories. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.